Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Data Innovation Summit 2020. I'm really glad and really happy, excited to be opening the Accelerate stage with I think, an exciting presentation of forging a business plan for data science and advanced analytics transformations. But before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Alex. I work for the Coca-Cola Company. I'm currently leading the data science and advanced analytics transformation across Central and Eastern Europe, working with several departments across the board, marketing, IT, finance, strategy, insights, you name it. I have more than 8 years of experience in the field of data science and advanced analytics, from project leading and technical work to setting the vision on how we proceed on a specific initiative. Experience across several industries from FMCG, telco, shipping, pharma, and several types of projects across the board. Main interest, well, data science, obviously, but one of the key things that got me into this area is the decisioning science. How do you make decisions? And of course, how do you innovate using those decisions? Now, this presentation is about forging a business plan for data science and advanced analytics. But what is a business plan? A business plan actually sets out the business future objectives and the strategies across to achieve them. Now, there are four elements in a business plan. The first one is the opportunity. Essentially, this covers the vision, the value, the strategic problems to be tackled, all the opportunities that it's there for the taking. Then you have the execution, sets out how those opportunities will become a reality. How will they become part of the business? Next is the organizational element, which essentially identifies the people, the structure, the talent, or the management chain, or the management structure on how this should be organized within an existing organization. Last but not least, and I think this is the most important one, is the finance plan. Essentially, in this area, you really plan and you really see what is the funding needs, the efficiencies estimates, the ROI, and if that plan is actually worthwhile from a financial perspective as well. What are the CapEx, OpEx costs associated also with this plan? But what is special in the case of data science, though? Well, two things. First one, it's quite a wide area. It's very complex as well. And there's so many things that no one can know everything in the field of data science. Yes, you might specialize in one or two, but still, there's so many other things that you don't know, or you don't know in depth. Second part is data science is evolving very, very rapidly. Actually, what this creates is, if you don't know it, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Essentially, what this means is the less you know, essentially, from the early stages, you have some high confidence. And speaking from my experience, when I started working in the field of data science, when I was back then writing my first lines of code, I was like, when I ran my first model, I was like feeling super confident. I was in this stage, the hype stage, or the stage where I feel like I'm a god. And probably you've read this out in a Morgan Freeman as well way of saying that, but you get that feeling, right? However, the same can occur for the organizations, and I've seen that happening throughout my career, that organizations as well suffer with this this effect. Essentially, what you can see that companies as well might have the initial hype that they have an opportunity or some thinking that this can actually change their business holistically or make them go out of business or make them dominate the business area. Well, none of them are true. Maybe some of them they have some hints of truth, but essentially the Dunning-Kruger effect is present in the organizations. And the Dunning-Kruger effect lives within the organization because some of the business leaders are aware in the same stage themselves as individuals. What we need to do as individuals, as analytics professionals, we really need to help them in going through that learning curve that we went through several years ago. We need to help them and educate them and help them make the right decisions moving forward. It's not a silver bullet. Yes, data science can provide some significant benefits, but it cannot do everything. And we need to educate everyone in the organization, starting with the senior leaders. As I said, also it's super complex and it's evolving rapidly. So no one knows everything, no one can know everything, and things are shifting so rapidly that you cannot see it on other areas or other industries. It requires massive change. Uh, Several approaches or several processes are affected through data science. What do I mean? It empowers some departments in a way that is unprecedented. It not just affects them, but empowers them. It's a different mindset. You go from an instinct and intuition to actually seeing the data and making a calculated decision. You might have conflicting answers as well from the data. Yes, of course. But how do you make that decision? It's a decisioning part, a decisioning science behind that. This requires a massive change. Data science is also a team sport. It's not something that you do on your own. You hire a data scientist and then magic happens and then you have the silver bullet and everything runs smoothly. It's a team sport. And let me bring the analogy of football. Essentially, you have defense, you have offense, you have the coaches, everyone plays their part. On the defense, you can see it as an analogy of having the right data or the right approach, the right um, team in place to pass the ball forward and actually score the goal. On the offense, you have, reaping the value, having the business personnel, the business profiles to understand and reap the benefits of those data science answers. But also you have the coach, which is our senior leadership. You have them to give them the strategic insight on how we should play that game. Now, let's go back in crafting that business plan. After I explained you all the special case about data science and why it adds a bit of complexity in there, essentially the business plan has one thing. It aims to satisfy a vision. So we first need to identify that vision. What is that vision? Essentially, this varies across the industries. So it is on you and your leaders to define what is that vision for the data. In our case, in Coke, we are a marketing company in the end, but we want to enable great consumer marketing. This is what we do. How we're going to do it? We're going to do it through enabling data-driven decision making. How? In order to improve performance efficiencies. And then we're going to do that through upskilling associates in the new technologies. That will lead to driving the innovation agenda that we have as a company. That will allow the company to grow even more. And in the end, listening to our consumers. Even though it is at the end, it's our core priority to understand what our consumers want and how they want it. So this is a vision. Think about, spend like a few minutes to understand why this is important. You need to have the Northern Star that will guide you through the adversity, through the problems. Yes, it's going to be a bumpy road, a rocky road. It's not going to be an easy path for sure. Now, moving into the actual roadmap on how you can go and create that, let's say four distinct steps. And we're going to go through each one of them one by one and see what each one of them entails. The first part is having the right business partnership. Essentially, what this means is having the right connection with the senior leaders. Then you need to identify how analytics or data science can bring value to your specific industry, to your company, and make you shine through the competition. Third is the execution plan. How are you going to do it? Self-explanatory. And then fourth is resource enablement. Do you have the right talent? Do you have the right money, time, in order to make that become a reality? Essentially, this is not a straight line. It's a bumpy, let's say, road with lots of curves and corners, and you might go backwards or forwards. It's an iterative process in the end. But let's start with a business partnership, and then we'll see how this goes, how this evolves. So at the first stage, you essentially want to involve the business at the outset. you want to include the key stakeholders as early as possible. This will in turn reduce project delays and actually help you and have the support that you need to push through some barriers. What you want from them is the objectives, the priorities, and the areas of focus that this transformation will focus on. You want the strategic initiatives that will take the company one step ahead of the competition or open new doors or new opportunities for the company. You want to create a partnership structure and a way of having some feedback loop with your leaders to be successful. And lastly, you need to align the organization. You really need to get the message across the organization that the organization is evolving, a different mindset is coming in a more data-driven way. Essentially, what you want to do what you want to have as an output is short list of strategic initiatives. You want to have an estimate of what resources this is going to need. You're going to have a mandate from the support from the leadership team, and actually you're going to have the picture of success. And this picture of success actually depends where you are. So depending on where you are in terms of analytics maturity, picture of success will be different. If you are in the descriptive analytics, then moving one step ahead into diagnostic or predictive analytics, then this will be of great help to the company. That can be a picture of success for that specific company or that specific industry. However, given the various layers within organization, you might have some solutions that already are within, let's say, predictive analytics field. And the picture of success for that would be taking that even further in the prescriptive analytics area. One thing that is important here is also, in order to have the right analytics in place or the right type of analytics as it's shown here in this presentation, you really need to have the data layer in the equivalent stage. You cannot do prescriptive analytics having some manual exports from the data or having Excel as a way of sourcing the data. Probably you're going to be needing some big amounts of data to have that automated decision making in the prescriptive analytics. So also the maturity of the infrastructure or the data collection or the data quality, let's say, is also important on what the picture of success looks like. As a second stage, you have the analytics by identification. On this stage, you actually source the short list of strategic initiatives from the previous stage, the business partnership stage, and you dissect them into a way that you can actually identify the business problems. From the business problems, you need to ask the right business questions and push the right stakeholders in order to formulate them accordingly. When you actually translate those questions into answers, this is where the value really lies. Next step is to assess the competition, see what others are doing. And for our case, I don't mean this, a sparring session with Pepsi, but what I mean is the competition in terms of industries, assessing what is happening in other industries that you can use for your own company's benefit or in your industry. As a last task in this stage, you really need to create a high-level solution design. This will encompass all the projects that have been identified to provide value, the right ROI, and also fit within the strategic initiatives as set from the business side. You also need to ensure that you have the right capabilities and the right capacity for the team to carry out those projects. One of the most important pillars in this area is the maturity assessment. Assess where you are. Just like in the previous slide showing the analytics maturity. Where is your data in terms of maturity level? Where is your analytics tools, your team? Have this assessment to see where you are and where you can go. So when you're at the stage of identifying those projects for your organization, what I like to do, and actually that goes in line with my previous analogy of the football, team sports, and data science. Actually, it's the offense versus defense kind of projects. On the offense side, you aim to score more goals, you aim to have higher revenues, you aim to have a larger consumer base, increasing the shares, that sort of a project. When you go on the defense, it's how you can minimize the cost, how you can create efficiencies, how you can improve the margins, those kind of a projects. So in our case, in Coke, one of the projects that actually falls within the offense category is the consumer insights. We want to understand how our consumers are essentially consuming our products. Well, not all of them, but we want to understand the whys and the hows. Other projects involve some price promo optimization, maybe personalization through the app that we have in our area, and that kind of a project. On the defense side, you have several projects like supply chain optimization. You can minimize the transportation costs, or in a factory, you can have predictive maintenance and actually save on the downtime costs. Or on the operational kind of side, you have the reporting automation, where it can save hours and hours of data collection for some of the people and the analysts that create the PowerPoint presentations. On to the third stage, you have the execution plan. This is actually the stage that your projects become a reality, how they're going to become a reality. There are several tasks here. So one of them is having the right data and the right solutions in place. Can you do that? Do you have the right capacity, the right tools? Is the solution feasible? You need to establish the ways of working because this, as I said again, is a team sport. You cannot work in silos. You cannot have two data scientists and one data engineer doing the whole work. You need to have a broad team that actually works towards a common goal. So establishing the ways of working is of critical importance. Moving into the adoption, you really need to have change management plan. How the outputs of those projects are going to be consumed by the business stakeholders or the business users. How this will change their way of working. And again, highlighting here the importance of the first stage to have the mandate from the leadership and from the business stakeholders that this is imminent in aligning the organization, as I said earlier. On this stage, you have a couple of owners, and lots of people are involved because essentially this is a working kind of team. You have data scientists, you have data engineers, subject matter experts, the analytics council as a steer committee, as a guidance committee, let's say. And then at the end, what you have as an output is how the team will operate, what are going to be the roles and responsibilities, and in the end, what are the technical requirements to make that happen. And as the last stage, you have the resource enablement. On this stage, there are three things that I want you to remember. Those are TMT: time, money, talent. Now, if you have all three of them, then you're lucky, honestly. And I also envy you for having all those three. But in reality, you have two of them. Maybe if you're unlucky as well, you have only one. What you want to do with those three, two, or one materials that you have at your place is creating the data analytics ecosystem. You want to create the right infrastructure, the right processes, the right people in order to make that happen. You heard me talking before about the Analytics Council. What this is a working group of data scientists, data engineers, subject matter experts, IT, and business stakeholders. The objective of this council is to drive the analytics agenda forward and make the right decisions, but also assist the senior leadership in making those decisions that will drive the data science agenda forward. On some other companies that are more advanced, you might have chief analytics officer or chief data officer or chief data protection officer that already play that role. Now, the second part of the resource enablement is having the proper data strategy. I think everyone can understand that if you don't have the right data, you cannot do data science. And I think this rings a bell. So this is a problem that we need to counter at the starting point from the onset if we want to avoid such situation. We want to have a proper data strategy. that governs the data collection, identifies, has the provisions, the storage, and everything is in there, and that can ensure that what we're building is sustainable and is scalable, most importantly. So to summarize, we have those 4 stages. Each one of those stages is important. And again, this is an iterative approach. You start off with the strategic initiatives, then you pinpoint the projects that are important and you create a high-level overview. Then you move on to the execution plan on how you're gonna make them a reality, what's the operating model, and how you're gonna manage the changes across the organization. And then as a final step is having the right resources in order to make those become a reality from a technical standpoint, but also from the people standpoint. So let me walk you through now on what I've done over the past 1.5 years that I have been leading this data science and analytics transformation for CE in Coke. There are several steps that actually they were there, but one of them was the most important one. This one was the proof of concepts. Having the proof to your leadership that what you're suggesting works and provides value. This is the most important thing that, let's say, will get you through the door. In order to get there, however, you really need to understand what are the problems, what is your tools of trade that you can solve those problems and carry on with the proof of concept. What do I mean? Is understanding the problems through the stakeholder interviews, but also see the tools that they have in terms of data and technical stack assessment. Let's start with stakeholder interviews. I've conducted a series of interviews capturing their pain points, identifying the processes, and in a sense, at that stage, I was also collecting data science projects. The business problems was the need, and then you can, an experienced data science can translate them into analytics problems. And this is what I did. So I had a series of projects that were there and we could implement and provide immediate value to the company. At the same time, since I was 1 month so, I conducted a series of trainings within the organization in terms of the coding database and all the machine learning stack that we use in order to elevate the game of the associates. Now, the most important milestone, as I said earlier, was the POCs. I want to highlight 2 POCs here, 2 proof of concepts. One was on the volume forecasting, the other one on reporting automation. On the volume forecasting, at that time, we got a quote from an agency of $1 million, and we managed, myself and the team, to carry this out within 1 month and using 2 FTEs equivalent. So you can see that 2 FTEs do not cost $500,000. So it was worthwhile. Second POC was reporting automation. We managed to automate and get a better understanding of the data of specific reports. And in a sense, we had a team of 5 people working on that on a full-time basis, and we managed to automate 8% of that. And a few easy maths, that's 4 FTEs equivalent for the year. When those numbers were actually presented to the leadership, this was an easy selling point. Improving the efficiencies. So if we put it back in the offense and defense paradigm, then we have 1 on the offense, 1 on the defense paradigm that actually provides the value itself. Fast forward to now, we have grown to a team of 8. We have done specific things, and actually we're working now on very high priority projects, confidential as well, so I cannot disclose them. Some key things that were important, as I highlighted earlier on the process on the roadmap, was the data analytics strategy white paper, which outlined the architecture, the process, and the people. the funding that we secured for hiring, upskilling, and the time that we were allowed to get our house in order to deliver the results. Also, as I highlighted earlier, the mandate from the leadership was clear. We have an open communication with them, we have their support, and we constantly prioritize with them on what is needed on a strategic approach. Last thing was the partnership on how we collaborate with the IT, some other business stakeholders, the vendors, the agencies, and this is in line with the change management and how we partner with the ways of working. Since we're reaching the end of this presentation, I want to also give you the three major learnings, the three key learnings that I want you to keep moving forward and to remember after this presentation. In order to be successful in this data science transformation, you need to have the right ways of working. What I mean with that is have the right approach on the way that you work. Change management, you're doing a transformation. How are you gonna handle this transformation is critical. If it's not adopted, then you're not doing a transformation, you're doing an exercise. In the end, you need to be agile. You need to be able to adjust as you go, because the final destination might change slightly or a bit more. So that's why it's important to have a continuous planning cycle. You need to be in the loop and understand how and what is expected from you from a business perspective on the planning side. It's also important to disseminate what you do, communicate with the organization, communicate with the stakeholders, the leadership, with the associates on what you do and how you work. The second key learning is the project selection. This is the stage at which you prove the value of what you're doing. Stakeholders here are your friend, and the interviews are going to give you the insight, the ideas of the problems that you need to solve. Because the stakeholders are close to the business, then they understand what provides more value. And it's highly recommended that you have frequent catch-ups as well with them to pinpoint and understand the problems that need to be solved. It's also very important to have quality and on-time deliveries, because in this non-stressful way of the POCs, it's very important that you do not fail meeting the deliveries or the expectations. It's going to hinder your progression moving forward. Last thing is the innovation. You're doing a transformation, not just for the sake of transformation, you're also bringing something new to the table or new ways of doing things. This is the innovation part. This is where you can grow and provide solutions that are innovative, and new ways of working, a new product, a new way of providing insight. This is also super critical. The third key learning is partnerships. At this stage, it's really important to start building and essentially establish a good relation with the leadership team, because those are the ones that are going to be providing the strategic insights on what is important. Also, you need to have the right partnership with the IT to enable the tools, the right tools, the approaches, the ways of working, and the access right in order to have what you need when you need it. Also, you need to be close to the business leaders to get the pulse of what they're doing and how they're doing it. All this can be organized within a a very nice governance model, which is what is important at this stage. Out of those 3 key learnings, nothing is useful unless you have the right data. Data is the foundation, as you expect, and without that, don't even start trying doing a transformation. If you don't have the right amounts of data, then there are other things that you should do first. When you have that, when you have a good solid data that data scientists, data engineers can work on and provide the value, then this is where you can have your data science transformation. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention and interest in the session. Take care, and I hope to see you on more data science conferences face-to-face this time. Thank you.